at 91.3 thousand and counting. Rocco, roll the intro.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City 91,000 Crypto, where we take old, Bitcoin. Boring, stale information, repackage it up in a fun, sexy way. We throw price predictions at you like I did all week and said we're going to get to 90,000, and I was right. And we also doing it in a fun and entertaining way. You know what? What a good time to be alive if you got a crypto portfolio, because damn near everything's in the green, even Ethereum. Holy crap. I would like to start the show off by pulling up the Ethereum chart versus BTC. And this is the first time I've seen it in quite some time. The blue line, which is Ethereum, has officially crossed over the red line, or orange, or whatever color you want to call that.
That's orange.
Orange-ish. Bitcoin is now underperforming ETH on a 10-hour time window. It is something we've been looking for a long, long time. Now, don't get it twisted. If you go back to any other time frame on the history of, it's still tremendously down against Bitcoin on the 1 year, on the 1 month, on the 7 day. So, will this trend continue? Will ETH break out of its lull and bleed against Bitcoin? This could be the day. I will say that at some point it will reverse. At some point it will change, and perhaps now this is it. Maybe this is ETH's time to shine. What do you think, David?
What?
You think it's ETH's time to shine? You think this is the first breakout for ETH to BTC?
This is ETH to BTC. So
at some point the chart reverses, right? At some point. Now maybe it isn't a long reversal. Maybe it's not a year. Maybe it's not 2 years. But at some point it will make up some kind of ground on Bitcoin, and at least from how far down ETH is compared to Bitcoin over the last year, 4 years, whatever time window you want to use. It's hard to argue that it won't have a bounce back. It just, the real question is, how long will it be? How far will ETH run compared to Bitcoin? That I'm unsure. But yeah, what do you think?
So you got a bullish divergence on the ETH Bitcoin chart. You know, remember the conversation we had this morning on the phone?
No.
About Ethereum?
Nope.
Of course you don't. All right, never mind. Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, you remember?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I think the ETH people, you know, the foundation, Vitalik, I think they're panicking. I really do. They're talking about getting rid of EVM, replacing it with something else.
I still hold no faith in ETH, but I'm just saying for those of you that do hold faith in ETH, that do hold ETH and are looking for it to rally, I do think that this perhaps is the opportunity to make up ground against Bitcoin. I just can't time it out. And in crypto, I don't really believe you should try to time things out. It's always kind of impossible to do so. You might get fortunate, but generally try to time tops, bottoms. You're gonna have mitigated success, right? You might get certain areas or zones. I think right now is actually, if you are in ETH, I think now is a good time to buy ETH if you're a fan of ETH. I'm not touching it. But I think that right now might be a good time to buy ETH. I think that it will get closer to that $2,000 here pretty soon. But I just don't know how long it'll last, right? I think it'll just be a speculative price pump. I don't think that all of a sudden users are going to start piling in and using Uniswap and launching ERC20s and, you know, getting euphoric on the ETH ecosystem. Not any more so than that we're seeing right now, right? I don't think there's going to be a giant uptick in transactions, users, and dApps. I think it's kind of stuck where it is at the moment. And so for that reason, if it rallies, it'll be off of just sheer price speculation, which I think it's kind of in that spot right now. So from price standpoint, it does look good. I'm not going to lie.
I look at it from fundamentally, and
yeah, fundamentally it's trash. right
Remember-
now. At least the narrative.
Remember-
The narrative.
Remember a month and a half ago, I forget what it was. They were doing something. Vitalik was coming out. Oh yeah, Vitalik was coming out, changing his profile picture, trying to like engage with the community. I was like, this is not what Vitalik does. I was like, I feel like they're kind of panicking a little bit. And then after yesterday's news of them wanting to scrap EVM, I think they're panicking, or at the very least, they got a B12 shot in the butt, because you don't do that. I mean, EVM is their bread and butter, right? Ethereum virtual machine. That's how everyone connects to the ETH liquidity pool, to the ETH users, the dApps. And you want to overhaul that? I don't know. It just seems not a good look. I'll tell you that. It's definitely not a good look. I try to stay as objective as possible, remove my financial, I guess, my financial intertwinings into my thought process. I remove those and try to stay objective. And objectively speaking, what we've seen from the ETH Foundation over the last 3 months, I think it tells me they're in a state of we need to do something fast. And if they do that, and they might fuck up and make a mistake, there's a lot of money on the line. That's something to keep in mind. Let's move on from ETH to Bitcoin. And I hit the wrong button. There we go. Look at this. Look at these inflows yesterday. The highest inflow day we've had since January. $381 million. And guess what, Robin? BlackRock wasn't even top 3. Wasn't even top 3. And we hit $381 million. This is off the back of, well, a lot of people are saying this is the reason markets are rallying. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, says he expects de-escalation in U.S.-China tariff fight in the very near future. And even the stock market is participating on the big gains today, although not as big as we're seeing across Bitcoin and some altcoins. Dow Jones up 700 points, S&P up 1.7%, and the NASDAQ up over 2%, with the VIX dropping 6%, which is exactly what we want to see. Dow was actually up a lot higher off of this news that Scott Bessent, I think they had a closed door meeting yesterday. And so, but yesterday we saw the Dow drop another 1,000 points and BTC was over $88,000. And so the title of today's show, Robin, is the beginning of the next all-time high rally for Bitcoin. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
If they drop the tariffs with China, then
Bitcoin's going to 105.
Yeah, it's going to slingshot. Now, how high past 100K? I don't know. I do think that there's concern that we still got the 25% tariff on all imported cars. We got a blanket 10% tariff on all imports. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but 10% on all imported goods is a high number, and it might affect prices, it might affect inflation, it might affect just the end consumer, or just the average person living here in America, where the cost of goods, being that it's from outside the country, is going to go up. Where a lot of produce comes from, Mexico and Canada, particularly Mexico. They grow a lot of our produce, and South America.
Avocados. What are the vegans going to do?
There's a lot more than avocados. I mean, I think
avocados are big.
Yeah,
let's face it.
Obviously, but I think that's just people just associate that with Mexico. But they're outside of grains and corn. Most of
hot
grains and corn for agriculture.
Yeah.
The
chilies for hot sauce.
Yeah, a lot of that is coming from Mexico, and so yeah.
We got Tom Crown up in here. What's up, Tom?
What's up, baby?
I think Tom nailed the bottom pretty much to the T. So shout out to you, Tom Crown. Nice seeing you here, my friend. Also, I wanted to highlight a post from Cyborg Girl. I think she's right on point. She said, every time there is a tariff scare, the market gets progressively desensitized, just like eating chilies. Those who would panic to these news would already have mostly panicked so by now. I agree. And we saw that, I think we saw that in his first term as well. It's like, you burn yourself so many times on your hand. Like, I worked in restaurants my whole life, and you pick up really hot plates. The first few times, like, the next time you're like, all right, this is hot, whatever. I can get to the table with this plate in my hand. So it's the same thing. And so I agree with what Cyborg Girl said is, even if we get bad tariff news, I think we don't see the level of sell-offs that we've had previously, maybe just a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. Not saying it won't affect the market at all, up and down, whether it's a little bit or a lot. I just don't think we're going to see that panic sell-off, 1,500 point days in the Dow, Bitcoin going down like 7, 8, 9% in a day. I don't think that's going to happen based off of just tariff news. I mean, we're at a trade war with the second largest economy in the world. Like, how much worse could it possibly get, right? There's no other country that it could be announced that we're in a trade tariff war with, or a trade war with, that the investors and Wall Street would say, oh my God, everything's going to shit. We're already there. And so we're at the bottom of the barrel as far as that. And so there's only an up to go. With that being said, today is Tuesday, and I am very excited to have our man, Magic Internet Money, joining us for another Magic Tuesday. Magic, welcome back. I'm excited to get your thoughts on BTC. And obviously, I'm going to ask for your probability percentages at the bottom being in, but we'll get to that a little later. The very common folk question we like to ask you every single week, but we feel like it's important for the people watching, Magic, what are your thoughts on this move? A lot of people were pointing to Bitcoin getting above its 200-day moving average for them to say, okay, now I'm feeling more bullish. What are your thoughts on the move? Is this a sustained move that you're seeing that will continue up? And if we do get a pullback, which we do expect as the markets continue to rally, where does Bitcoin need to stay above for this current trend to stay?
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to give you my opinions today. I was going to chime that in, but I was still chewing some food. I was trying to eat backstage.
Oh, you're good. Sorry.
Yeah, so Bitcoin, no, you're good. It's on me. Very, very simple chart. This is something I'm going to cover tonight with the group. We actually covered the EQs of previous years recently. It was very, very useful to go through. And did I not say? Nope, there it is. Yearly opens. Okay, so a lot of times when you get moves, you should be focusing on the high time frames. In this case, it's going to lead directly into where we are now, looking for the 50% mark of the prior year. I used it quite a bit on the way up here as well, and it's very useful to us now. So you'll see there's 24s open. Here's 25s, which is going to be the area we need to be looking towards here soon. And if we look at the 2024 EQ or 50% mark, this is going to be not only the 382 of our overall move up in the cycle and back testing this prior high, but bounce zone indeed. You've seen it historically be very, very well respected on Bitcoin. If you go back to, I believe it was 22 and 21, you can see very similar things here. You can see this is actually the 22 high. It is the EQ of 2021. So going into the bear market, that was where we really kind of turned it on. Once you were back above the prior year halfway point, the EQ 50% mark, you really get that impulsive move. So looking at where we are now, you are below the yearly open. Historically, actually, you see price action like this towards the top. And we had some statistical, models in place that were like, hey, we're very likely to hit this area. But if you go back to 2017 and you start looking at the 2017 open, which we're clearly above here, 2018 is where things kind of take a dive, where you're below the yearly open. So you go to that 2017 50% mark. And that was right around about 10K. And you can see that you got about a 40% bounce off of this. It doesn't look like it here, but it is about 40%. So we're seeing something very similar. And so when you ask, where do I become ultra bullish and say, okay, new highs is what I'm looking for, it would probably be above the 2025 open. And it looks further away here because this is the BLX. So if we switch back to what's going on in real time, you can see that the 25 open is going to be fairly important for us. And main reason being is if you start really looking at things in terms of volume profile and just cruising through meaningful timeframes, right? If we're above the 2025 open, we're approaching that NPOC from up here. This will also probably chime into the gold pocket, I believe. I tried to make a folder this morning for you guys. That way I have things in line here. And we've got a couple levels to discuss there. But if you look at the monthly, the 60-day, the 90-day, these are all timeframes that are going to be very indicative of the high timeframe trend. Everything's really saying that above the 2025 open and above these NPOCs that are left over on the 30, 60, and 90-day ranges, that's where we can start saying maybe we've got a shot at going above the 110 high and shooting for, in my opinion, I still do think that the zone that I gave for the high between 101 and 122 is probably still going to be where the cycle ends up. The same thing happened in 21 when I gave it and we went to 64, we went back to 69. I would still be looking at this zone somewhere between 120 to 124, probably being maybe where the next leg stops. But that's only if we can get above the 25 open. If you're back above that open, things really do look different. And historically speaking, I would really advise people to go back and just put the yearly opens on their chart and roll through them. And it'll make things very clean and easy for you to kind of navigate. But for now, you are approaching resistance. The 25 open on a meaningful, time scale is where I want to see it close. In the short term, to answer your question, this 87.7 monthly pivot that we discussed several weeks ago, we were talking about these monthly pivots, and that you have an opening range pivot right here, 87,700, and that we didn't want to see pivots generating below it, which we did. We've also generated pivots below the 60-day on 30-day averages, which is also not good. That said, if you can hold this area and move those averages up, you can very easily run into a 2021-esque scenario where you had this bottom, it fell out, but you get a really nice rally on the second half of that year. And that's kind of what we're looking at now in terms of Bitcoin is, can this be sustained? And if it's going to have to live above 87.7. And if you look at how they're generating right now, that's the weekly. Hang on, we'll generate the monthly and the 60-day. If you look at how they're generating right now in terms of average, they're closing in on that mark. So again, it's very important for Bitcoin to continue this rally through the end of April and not be giving up these grounds, because in the past, you have seen situations where prices rallied above these averages after firing off weak signals and then actually giving them back up. And once they give them up, it was like a free fall. So continuation is the name of the game. And I alluded to last week that if we start cracking into this, blank zone here, I don't really anticipate a ton of resistance. I would anticipate it to go to the major targets and do it quickly. Those major targets are going to be, one, the yearly open, but two would be that NPOC that comes in right around the gold pocket here. So, that gold pocket, I believe, is, let's just pull it up, right around 96 to 97. And then it's a game of where does it find itself in terms of support. And if it finds itself above the 25 open specifically, that'd be quite strong. But realistically, anywhere above about 88,000 is where you want to be at. If you wanted to be ultra, ultra conservative because you're like, hey, I don't trust it, you could just call it, I need it above the quarterly pivot, which is your most recent meaningful pivot that's generated right here, right around like 89.6. So again, that's what you're looking at, is potentially a rejection here, and then can it find its footing and bring these averages up to kind of invalidate some of the things that have been going on in terms of the long-term trend.
Love that, Magic.
That's it.
That's super. Okay, so sounds like you're more in the 87.7 camp, but if you're on the super conservative side, 89. I think you said 89.1.
It's kind of a region, but it is one of those things where it's hard to narrow it down to one level because there are so many important levels in this zone. So that's why I really want to focus on that yearly open being the key, because in past cycles, and I won't get into it here, you've actually lost the yearly open in the 2017 bull run, but once it reclaimed it, you generally target the prior year's high, which the prior year high is obviously all the way up here around 108,000, which puts us back in that ball camp of we're going to try to make a new high at this point. Yeah. So that's why the yearly open to me is kind of the one I'm really eyeballing. But yeah.
Okay. Magic, can we take a peek at XRP? It's sitting at $2.15. A lot of movement from a fundamental standpoint. I know you focus more on technicals, but to preface a little bit, RLUSD, we're going to share some news on that. That's pretty big news. We are expecting an XRP ETF very soon. The court case is over. It's a lot of people are sitting there saying, hey, $2.15 is super undervalued. What are you seeing on the XRP chart?
Let me pull up the right one. I think I pulled up Bybit and I was looking for Bitstamp. I believe this is the guy that we're after. So XRP is still, again, one of these charts where it looks good. So a lot of people are always asking if alts are going to have an alt season and we're going to get all-time highs. And I think some of them will. Obviously, XRP made a very slight new all-time high, but As long as it's holding on to this like $2 zone, it maintains a position of strength, in my opinion. It's a back test of your old range high here and your B leg, and it gives it that opportunity that if it can continue to hold this, you have a shot at trying to make new highs. And the timing on those highs we've covered before was middle of the summer, which is kind of in line with what's going on now with Bitcoin. So for me, long term, as long as it's above this B leg here, $2, or well, it's not $2, it's 196. It's hard for me to be bearish on this one. Now, in terms of the local range, you've got it's an okay consolidation. There's going to be a lot of falling wedge people here, which is fine. But realistically, you're going to have to clear these highs. And I would say a change of behavior is just a weekly closure back above 247. If you can maintain something like that, you really have a shot at trying to take out these highs and maybe push for new ones. So I would really focus on about the 250 level for XRP for right now. And, support is 196, kind of like Bitcoin. You expect that yearly EQ to be support, just like you expected the B leg here to be support. Set up shop, and then where's my range at? So it's going to range around a little bit, but anything above 250 and it starts to really kind of put itself in a position that it could actually try to make new highs. So if it dips below 196, as long as it's not closing there, like you can see, even on a weekly basis, it's not closing below here. But if you start closing below there on like weeklies, monthlies, and the rest of the market is in tune with that, you may be seeing, again, this pulling way back into this range, and this move will probably be retraced and everybody ends up very unhappy. But for right now, XRP looks great. Like I said, comparatively speaking to a lot of alts, they're not going to make all-time highs, but tokens like this, maybe even something like a Solana, are going to. That doesn't mean that altcoins won't have spectacular rallies like 4, 5, 6, 700% in some cases, but they probably still don't make all-time highs because they're just so beat down. So that's the way to put it, is if you're a trader, trade accordingly and just take profits.
I agree. I agree with that sentiment, Magic. I think the era of spray and pray, right? Just close your eyes and throw darts and, oh my God, I just hit a 20x, a 50x. I think those days are over. You need to really focus on quality. Magic. Got a lot of Cardano fans here. Can we take a peek at ADA?
Yeah. I like the ADA chart wasn't looking too bad a while back. Let's see what it looks like now. That's the wrong one. We wanted USD. There we go, Binance. So again, ADA back into our blue box here, dipping and below it here on the weekly, just on a wick basis. So realistically, I'm gonna get rid of that kilo.
It's chart, Magic. Sorry.
Oh man, did it again. It's 2 weeks in a row.
You're good, bro.
It's 2 weeks in a row.
That's what I'm here for, my friend. I got you.
Us boomers got to stick together.
Hey, I'm a millennial.
Oh, sorry. I think we're like
It's
the same
okay,
age.
Mike.
I don't even know what I am.
Mike.
We are the same age, I think.
But in terms of this one, again, hanging on to the 2024 open in this case, this blue box here between 68 cents and 59 cents, that's really been the area that I want to see holding as support. It continues to do so. That's a pretty nasty monthly candle. But if you get back above, the 2023 high here at 68 cents, you have a shot at retracing some of this move. And for Cardano, this chart doesn't really get exciting again until you're above 94.5 cents, to be quite realistic with you. Above here, things can definitely take place. You can see even on a weekly and a monthly basis that you don't close above here often. And once you close below, generally it's not a good sign. So coming up here and failing to hold it as support, to me, is not a great sign, but it's not a death sentence either. If it can find itself here along with the rest of the market and push, I just don't quite have the same conviction as a lot of the people in the market to say, hey, the bottom is all the way in. That doesn't mean I'm opening short positions and selling everything. It just means I'm going to be a little more patient. I think April is going to be quite informative on what the market's going to do going into May for both traditional and this. So with this one, it's hard not to want to buy in this region. It's support. You're above the previous month low, even though you can barely see it here. I would probably start looking for areas of invalidations, something like this, and I'll change the color because it's hard to see. And I would say this little previous month low for right now, for at least the next 8 days, to me, would be something that I need to see holding. I really don't want to see price coming all the way back down to it and closing on it on the monthly basis here, but knowing that we have come here and gone below it and now reclaimed it, going into like the crack, so to speak, you can see that it's been a support and resistance, and that when you're above it, you can go to the top side of the range, which right now is coming in closer to that 68 cent mark. So if you're looking at this, you're really wanting to see the breakout of 68 cents. And if you get above 68 cents, there is some dead air here, as you can see from this fall, which does put you back in a position to look for a larger retrace. To me, I would just do something as simple as looking for the gold pocket, or if you were more in tune with like your tools at home, for anyone that's watching and does do charting, you can do things like gold pocket, which lines up nicely with the key level we were just looking at, or you could go into like your volume profile, look for NPOCs and or pivots, if you're familiar with those, as we do go over those a lot. But that's kind of how I would see it for right now. Above 68 cents, and you have a real shot at one, taking out these highs at 77, but making a run at like 90 cents again. And that's a big area. Above 90 cents, and you can essentially look for another 50% almost once you do get above that level and live there. And we've seen it again on the monthly time scale. Above here, good things happen for Cardano. So that's going to be the first step. So if you're an interested buyer, this is the area. Just have some invalidation, because below here, it's not as cheery. You're probably looking closer down to like 35 cents if you start losing 59. So,
do you want to throw out a price prediction for Cardano, Magic? Feel comfortable doing that?
Like on the cycle?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No.
People might not like it. I don't do a lot of like long-term price predictions on charts like this, mainly because I'm a bit of a Bitcoin maximalist, and this to this point, I look at things like Bitcoin and I look at the rest of the market and the maturity of the market, and I say, okay, there's going to be more winners than Bitcoin, obviously, but as of right now, the future is so uncertain. That with this one, I'm not inclined to say it makes a new all-time high. I'm more inclined to say that if this one even pushes past 94 and past this like $1.30 region here that was marked out, is I'd be looking more to like $2, and that would get me, about as far as I'd be willing to give this one until I see some real strength. Because it's not that this is a bad chart; it's just hasn't done anything to convince me that it's going to make a new all-time high yet. And the first step is realistically above $1.30. That's way out there. 94 cents just gives us that next leg up. But yeah, if it gets above $2, I don't really have a price evaluation for it. That to me would be okay, if it's above $2, the all-time high is what, like $3 and some change, $3.16.
Yeah.
I think you, at that point, you're probably expecting new all-time highs, and you guys would be much better judges of an all-time high for this token than I would. I don't do as much with fundamentals, as you guys know. I just tell people I'm fundamentally, I won't use the R word. I know that's a hard no on you,
you can say it. We
on
don't
YouTube.
care. I say it all the time.
Fundamentally,
in fact,
retarded. Yes.
When I say it, I get a $20 super chat from Nathan Lowmaster. So we can go back and forth, have a contest here, see how much money the channel. We'll split it with you.
I think that Cardano is a great token. That I'm glad you brought it up again. I haven't looked at it in a little while. No one's really requested. Our community isn't as community token based, so we don't request some of these things all the time. We look more for like volatility. But in this regard, there's some really clear and obvious areas I'd like to trade if given. So to me, is if this gets a bounce and we start living above the current, either the current month's high or that 68 cent 2023 high, I'm really interested in the rotation up to 94.5, and then potentially looking at it as a range trade, not looking to short it to like new all-time lows, but looking to short it down to the most obvious area. Very similar to Bitcoin last week. Very obvious areas to look for. Didn't even fulfill its targets. That's why you have to understand range trading in that regard. So this one's got some really clean levels though. Some of these tokens trade very well, and I would say that this one definitely does.
Awesome. Magic, if you have time, I wanted one more chart if you got time. If not, it's all good. We'll ask you next week. But Caspa, I know you had that. Sure. You had that harmonic pattern on there. What are you seeing on the Caspa chart?
I think she teased us. She got very, very close to, I believe we were looking for that 5.18 cent, and front ran us just a little bit. There we go. Caught it before you reminded me. So we're on the weekly here. You were looking for at least the November 23 NPOC. We said this is about where we need to start looking at entries, is looking for a new low. It did make a new low, in fact. So we got that part right, below 5.5 cents. It just didn't dip quite as far. So if you follow this on like a weekly basis, it's given you several weeks to take advantage where you've swung fill the low. You've had a bullish engulfing candle of the low, right? So that's one very important thing to note, is that you not only swung fail it, you took this entire candle out, letting you know a stop loss below the low is warranted and that you're looking for the next target. And for this one, on a pattern like this, you're looking for something like the 50% or this B leg right here. So B leg is going to go here, and I'll clean up this chart because it's going to get real messy if I don't. And then we'll take a look at some fibs, because you can keep it very, very simple and get rid of the 24 open as it's 2025 as is. 2024 low, always important to know where it's at, because that means we are swing failing that low and looking for the 50% mark. So 50% mark's coming in right around, looks like 13 cents. And you've got a key level here. And the reason this is key for anyone that's curious of why I'm marking the B leg here, think of it this way. And I know you liked harmonics a little bit. Think of it as prices setting up here in consolidation before an expansion, right? So if that's the case and you get an expansion, it would be a target of a back test, like an SR flip, and you'd want to see this level reclaimed. And if it does, you go to the next target, which in this case becomes the 50% mark. The gold pocket on something like this, not nearly as important. So for this case, I get rid of it because we're only looking at it through the lens of like a Fibonacci sequence. So we'd be looking at the 886 and 818 next. So you would be saying that, okay, the most important areas here are going to be about 10 cents. After that, 13 cents. And then after that, you're expecting a challenge of the all-time highs if it claims that area at the 50-cent mark. So this one is coming into resistance. So I wouldn't just be like buying into it. I'd be looking for a pullback. And if you get that pullback, it could be as shallow as 8 to 7 cents. It doesn't have to come all the way back to these lows. So with something like this, getting acceptance back into this range is going to be fairly important. You know, you can see this gray box here. You can see our B leg where you set up consolidation, and now we're looking to see if price can reclaim it. And if you do, you know, you can trade this a number of ways. You can trade it based on that harmonic, or you could turn around and trade it based on, you know, points of control, just key levels that maybe you have a system in place for yourself. But you can see right here with this nice thick line that if you look at it, it's a nice neckline, almost like a head and shoulders. So reclaiming that does put you back inside of your old range, which you could very easily define as something like this and say that there's my point of control. Again, that lines up really nicely with our 50% mark. But if it's claimed, I'm looking to rotate this range all the way to 16 cents, which begins to look very similar to what we just talked about with that, you know, harmonic pattern. So it kind of gives you that extra confidence that, okay, this does make sense. These targets make sense. So I would say above, what is this? Above 10 cents, if you can live there, you can target probably, you know, 13 cents and then looking for the rotation all the way to 16, 17. And at that point, that's when I would change my tune on some alts and say, you know, maybe this one makes a new all-time high if it can get this high, because that you're pretty far up there. You've suckered everyone into selling that you're going to if it makes it that far, in my opinion. That's a pretty nasty drop. And so, you know, Caspa, not a terrible chart. It becomes a terrible chart below here, though. And I think I mentioned that. So this is the must hold area. And you can see it's your last real consolidation. Logarithmic really does us a favor here. And back inside here, you really do have a shot at coming back into this consolidation and trying to push higher over time. That would imply the cycle goes to like a traditional length on Bitcoin, though, in my opinion, which means that you wouldn't see a top on Bitcoin until either the end of the summer or Q4. And that would allow these alts to, one, make these big moves, but then consolidate and then push higher as the rotation occurs. I don't think the rotation will be like years past where it rotates into everything because, like you said, spray and pray the last few cycles. But in this case, I think it would be the stronger ones. And this one would certainly be looking quite strong if it's up in that region. So it's a big if. It's got a lot of ground to make up, but that's kind of the roadmap for it.
Awesome. Magic, thank you as always, man. Always love your insight. Guys, we have Magic's Discord pinned at the top of the chat. If you're in the Discord, he also does special live stream only for Discord members. And so if you want more Magic, highly recommend you go join. He joins us every single Tuesday, and that is for good reason. Magic, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day, brother.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. All right.
Did have a
super. Okay, go ahead.
Did have a super chat from was it Poman? Poman, $20 super chat. Ashley, another $20 for the passport fund. Question to Ashley, if you're in the chat, did you get a passport yet? We sent the money for your application, so you know. We need
she's not spending money on a passport.
We need to see we need a KYC.
She takes the money. Let's take a guess. What does Ashley do with the money she's supposed to buy her passport with? 1, buy Starbucks. 2, she doesn't really party, right? She's not. Anyways, speaking of partying, you see this meme here? You guys come in, Bitcoin's pulling up Solana and ETH. Well, somebody actually had a different idea, fixed it. You guys come in and, well, ETH might be too far down the hole to get pulled out. And then also, ladies, pay attention. You want a side business, start popping out babies, $5K per kid after delivery. So, yeah. Does this count for, never mind. This is an interesting chart shared by Miles Deutscher. I believe that's how you say his name. We're currently witnessing the largest increase in new whales in Bitcoin's history. Robin, color orange is old whales. Color pink is new whales. And that is accelerating at light speed. I mean, that is as vertical as it gets. It's like that one roller coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California. What was it, the Goliath?
I mean, that's all traditional finance through Wall Street, right?
Well,
I mean, it took off. It took off in 2014.
2024?
2024, excuse me. And so,
but Rob, these are individual wallets, right?
I know.
So like BlackRock, when they buy for the ETF issuers, it's in, I'm not saying it's all in one wallet with Coinbase, but maybe 10, 20, 30.
But still, it's in correlation with the ETF launching.
Sure, it's included in there, but it's not all BlackRock customers don't have all their own freaking wallets.
And how new are these wallets? Because I feel like
I think 6 months plus 6 months.
How can it be 6 months?
Plus 6 or
if
plus
it goes back to 2021?
No, it's just a growth of new whales. So, okay, someone who had a wallet address.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And it grew to, it's based off of an amount of Bitcoin. I think it's 1,000 Bitcoin, not time. So yeah, 1,000 BTC. So those have grown. New ones. Anyways, we also had this shout out and congratulations and round of applause for Mr. Paul Atkins as he is officially sworn in as the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States of America.
Do you think there's any chance of being swindled twice? Because we were excited when Gary Gensler got into office. He got appointed. We were all up in arms. We were a round of applause.
No, we were down in arms. We were up in arms is when you're like mad.
Well, the thing is
we were down in arms.
We were very excited for Gary Gensler. He taught a class at MIT on Bitcoin. We were like,
very bullish.
The day is here, guys. Everyone's so excited. And then
I think
got your ass. That's what happened.
I think, now I'm not saying it wasn't all on Gary Gensler, or I am saying it wasn't all on Gary Gensler.
It was all on him, yeah.
No, I think a lot of it was he was getting influenced by Elizabeth Warren. I really think so, man. I think
one politician. No, I think.
Well, I think she was the leader. She was.
I think it was the banks and the World Economic Forum, and I think that
the FDIC commissioner,
the
OCC commissioner, all of them, bro. And I honestly, I
don't think Elizabeth Warren had much.
Are you high? You don't think she had sway? She was giving him the answers to the testimony.
I'm not saying that she didn't have any sway. I'm just saying that
That's
she
what
wasn't.
I'm saying.
She was a very minute factor. The reason Gary Gensler was so against crypto was for the banks, not
the banks
for the
wanted
politicians.
to get into crypto. They hated the SOB 121 rule. You're wrong on this one.
Then why did the banks repeatedly shut down accounts?
Because they were getting forced by the FDIC and the Fed. They were saying, "Hey, wink, wink. It's very you shouldn't do this because it could be it could harm the financial network." Wink, wink. We're not going to tell you not to service them, but no, there's risks. That's the truth.
So let me just hear this out. You believe that the banks that make all their money on fiat, that control bank accounts, that have ugly ass savings accounts, interest rate returns for their customers, that feed people to death for every transaction, every wire transfer. You're telling me that they wholeheartedly, when Gary Gensler came into office back in 2017 or 2018, whatever it was, that at that point they were like, please, let's get crypto. No, that was a money scheme that they have been running since the dawn of time, bro.
What's the old
Since
saying,
banking-
Robin? What's the old saying? The old saying is first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they join you. They were trying to fight us, and when they realized that this is not working, people are still pouring in shitloads of money, and instead of watching that money leave our system, we can take part in the system, make money that way too. Why do you think they were all pushing to repeal Sub 121?
At that point, sure, it's an opportunity to make money. But when Gary Gensler was first in office and they were attacking crypto, because it was an attack on the banking system. And at some point you realize that, like, hey, we can't hold this back anymore. We might as well make some money off of it. And then they also see the allure of stable coins. And then at some point you start realizing that exchanges in foreign countries and other banks in other countries are making a crap ton of money on stable coins. And then all of a sudden the banks want a piece of the pie. I'm like, well, you've been here trying to oust Bitcoin for the longest time and crypto for the longest time. Now you see that money's going overseas. You want to change your tune. It's no coincidence that as soon as stable coins end up being as big as they are and as much money as there is, the politicians like Donald Trump see that, hey, like, look how much money is here. Let's get a stable coin passed right away. It's no surprise that the banks all of a sudden switch their tune. I think the banks are the ones that control the money. They're the ones that control fiat. They're the ones that control the transfer of money, your overdraft fees, your wire transfer fees, your banking checking account fee. All of that comes from the banks. You start putting that into crypto, that whole system is irrelevant, or at least is out of competition to crypto. And so we've always talked about, like, where crypto is so that way you can, unbank yourself, right? That's like the big saying in crypto. And the reason Gary Gensler and the SEC fought so hard against crypto was for the interest of the banks. I will never sway away from that, no matter what. And you could talk about one SOB 121 bill as the exception. It does not change their shit ass fucking actions that they've had the last 5 years. Bro, they shut down bank account after bank account after bank account. You don't think that these guys wouldn't have went in and testified at hearing after hearing after hearing?
But
they had opportunity.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You're talking out of both sides. One, you're saying because the money's leaving. Why would they shut people's accounts down if they're making money on the shit you're talking about? Wouldn't they want to keep people's accounts? They were getting pressure. Do you believe in Operation Choke Point 2.0?
Yeah,
that was the whole thing.
But who do you think wanted that?
The FDIC, the Fed, and the
FDIC, which controls banks. The Fed, which controls banks.
Correct. You're making my point.
Exactly.
They were putting pressure on the banks. Do you think the banks are going to want to go to the commissioners?
Okay, do you think? Let me ask you a question.
Hey, stop me from servicing people because they're in crypto. No, they were getting pressure to do so. Why would a bank? And I'm saying this because Sam Price has said this publicly. Why would a bank with someone like Sam Price, I don't know how much money he had in his bank, but they were servicing his bank account, his business, they were making money, he was cutting checks. Why would they want to get rid of him as a client? Why?
Because they don't want crypto in their space.
But it's not.
These individual accounts, sure, they're losing out on money, but from the global, the macro view, if they can hold back crypto and cancel certain accounts. Now, you're making it sound like the FDIC and the Federal Reserve and the banks are two completely different things. They don't have any kind of like buddy communication here. Remember, the FDIC essentially is funded by the banks, right? Essentially. Now, there is government money, but at the end of the day,
it is.
At the end of the day, the banks are the ones that are working with the FDIC. They're the ones giving the money to the FDIC, so that way they can backstop them if crap goes under. So they're one company. They're homogenous. Now there's a head here, and then there's individual banks there, but they all sit down in private rooms, in rooms that are not televised, have meetings, and discuss what they're going to do. It's not the Fed chair. It's not Jerome Powell sitting in office by himself like, you know what? I don't like crypto. And all the banks are sitting there like, can we please have crypto? Please. No. They're sitting in a room, choke point 1.0 and 2.0, whatever it is, that was put together by the heads of banks. Why do you think Jamie Dimon, who was outspoken against crypto, the head of the largest bank, was out here talking about it's rat poison, it's a pet rock, all this crap. And then as soon as there's a money-making opportunity, he flips the switch. It's exactly what's happened in crypto. It's exactly what has happened in crypto. All of a sudden, the banks are like, well, we've been trying to shut this thing down, but China's making a lot of money on this.
It's just
Hong Kong's making a lot of money on this.
It's just,
can we just get the Saab 121 bill? Just that one?
It's just a coincidence that we get a change of regime and all of a sudden now they're excited about crypto, right?
That's my point exactly.
It's not your point.
The regime changed. The mentality changed. The banks changed. The banks changed their tune. The Fed changed their tune. The SEC changed their tune. Everybody changed their tune. All of a sudden, everybody's like, yay, crypto. But then when the SEC was here, head of JP Morgan Chase against crypto. Larry Fink against crypto initially. Then you also had the FDIC. Everybody was against crypto. And so then now all of a sudden they all changed.
So they wanted to completely shut out an industry with that's $3 trillion.
They literally called it choke point. Choke point.
Not from the banks, from the fucking regulators.
They were working with the banks. Don't you think the banks were just out here servicing fiat and were praying to have crypto, and all of their entire money making philosophy was off of fiat and fees, bro. That's where they make their money, and it disappears in crypto.
Hey, 50 million people that are in crypto, we don't want your business at our bank.
They didn't.
Let's move on.
That's the dumbest take I've ever heard. Literally the dumbest take. All right, let's move on. XRP eyes a $2.70 surge as active addresses. You know, before I gotta know. I want to know what the chat thinks. Okay, there's how many of you are in here? There's 387 of you in here. Do you agree with me or Robin? If you're a member of the channel, use our emojis. Shout out to all the members of the channel. If you're not, put a 1 for David, or 1 for Robin, 2 for David.
So David's stance, what's your stance in summing it up? That the banks wanted crypto this entire time?
It wasn't the banks who were trying to get rid of the crypto customers. It was the FDIC.
And then
Robin thinks it was the banks that
and if you think the banks
No, we're not arguing.
Crypto.
We're done. The argument's done. We're trying to get
two if you think the banks wanted crypto this whole time and the evil FDIC
That's
and
not what
Gary
I said.
Gensler.
State your point. I
Okay,
state mine.
let's
Don't
do
try to override what I said and put words
let's
in my
move
mouth.
on.
I
Let's
said
see what
I
the
said,
chat
you
has
say
to
what
say.
you say. The people say what they say, and we'll
But
see who wins.
you've ran 3 sentences on your point,
did
and then
not
I
run
got
3.
5 words out, and you were like, no,
Because
Because you're talking about
No.
me. I am here. I'll speak for myself. You are here. You speak for yourself.
Let's-
Anyways.
Oh.
And the chat speaks for themselves. And Rocco, who do you agree with?
Let's take a look at XRP. That was a very nice article. that
Okay,
you were about
that's a
to
very
pull out.
political answer, Rocco. I appreciate that. Okay, XRP, $2.70 says active addresses spike and bullish patterns emerge. Let's dig into this a little bit. So this optimistic projection, talking about the $2.70, is underpinned by a striking 67.5% surge in active addresses on the XRP blockchain, with figures climbing from 27,300 to an impressive 40,300 as of the 22nd of April. Also, there was this as well. Ripple redefines DeFi. RLUSD joins AAVE version 3 with a game-changing $50 million market cap. Although initial usage is low, early market signals show growing interest. And backed by institutions and focused on cross-border payments, RLUSD aims to compete directly with USDT and USDC in the medium term. RLUSD has the potential to onboard a crapload of people into the XRPL. This, along with this as well. Rob, what's your outlook on XRP? Do you still look at, and I asked Magic this question, do you still look at $2.16 as extremely undervalued for what XRP represents?
Yeah, but the problem is prior to, or right around the time that Bitcoin was at all-time highs, was right around the time that XRP was, that $3 range. It just ran so heavy. Now, I do believe it's undervalued for this bull market. I just think that it is probably still going to consolidate a little bit longer because it has outpaced all altcoins in the top 100 for the most part.
We've seen it with Caspa, literally skyrocketed, and then 3-4 months of consolidation. We saw the same
year
thing.
plus in consolidation, realistically. Now, it did look at the Caspa chart and just hit 1 year. And it's been a big run on XRP. And so I do think that we're going to get a long-term consolidation on XRP. I don't want to say longer than the rest of the altcoins. I think the rest of the altcoin market is going to rally, and then I think XRP will probably break out a little later this year. Now, not to say it won't get back to $3. I just think that XRP is due for another giant candle, another big run. And so I just think we're going to have a little bit of upward movement in the time being. So.
Yeah. Really since August of 24. So almost a year.
Yeah. I mean, you look here, when did it break that line you got there at the bottom?
This one?
Yeah. When did it break above that?
Above 5 cents. That was in November of 23.
Yeah. So from there,
the rally started.
Yeah. And then it just, I mean, it's essentially kind of gave all that up, retested, and then it's off to the races again.
So this was 273 days of really upward price movement, new high after new high. And obviously we had.
And I think you'll find something very similar at XRP with this as well. I think that we'll see some rallies, some pullbacks, but I don't think we're going to get that next big breakout out of, I don't think we're going to get the next breakout until we get a little bit more consolidation. Not to say, what was the all-time high? Was it $3.38? $3.30.
This is according to.
I think it'll go back up there. I think it'll probably print a new all-time high within the next, say, 4 months.
XRP's rally was much faster. I mean, this was over 73 days.
Yeah, I think what we'll see is that 375, that $4 XRP within the next 4 or 5 months. And then from there, I think it's just going to have a hard time getting up to that $5 mark. At least in the short term, I would say by the end of the year, when XRP is ready to break out, when it starts to hit new all-time highs and it's in that price discovery, I don't think there's much slowing it down. I think that it'll probably catapult to that $7, $8 pretty quickly.
I think XRP is the most retail-friendly coin, period. And so it's got that going for it. So I don't think we'll see as long of a consolidation / downward price movement that we saw in Caspa for XRP. But I mean, maybe we still have a little bit more to go. You are seeing a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders here this is the daily on XRP. And I really think RLUSD, man, if it gets adoption, I think is going to be a game changer for XRP and for the XRPL. So it'll remain to be seen, but they got everything in place. And the overhang of a lawsuit is finally gone. And I'm very curious. And so I look at XRP at a market cap of, what's the market cap? 125. That's not including what's not circulating. So this is only what's circulating. So it's not the fully diluted, but it's at 125. We're looking at a payment space. If RLUSD takes off, I think this thing could 10x. I mean, it's a little on the super bullish side, but if this can get circle level, not even tether, but circle level adoption and acceptance, it could be sitting at over $1 trillion in value. When you talk about the amount of value that will be moving on the blockchain when it comes to stable coins, we're talking trillions of dollars. The DTCC alone does quadrillions in transactions every year. And so
you just got to keep in mind that, you do pay fees, which is sub 1 cent for
way cheaper than wire transfers.
Yeah. It's sub 1 cent on the transfer fee. You have to pay an XRP, but you could have in theory a RLUSD that doesn't really need much XRP for utility and use case. I mean, and you know, the banks that you mentioned, or, you know, large entities that are moving XRP, they're not going to buy XRP off the order books. They're going to buy it OTC for transactions. So, no, I think you might be a little bit more bullish on RLUSD affecting the price of XRP. It is undeniable there will be a price influence to the upside. I'm just not quite sold on a 10x from that narrative alone. I am pretty bullish on a 5, perhaps a 10x, but I do think it's probably off the back of other narratives than just simply transaction fees from, I think, transaction fees from the movement of stable coins. Just because it's like a fraction of a penny for each transaction. And so that's kind of where I lie. I do think that price speculation, banks, sovereign wealth funds, the upcoming ETF, I think that just simply institutions buying and holding XRP, I think is pretty bullish. I think that's something we really haven't seen much of. And so I think that there will be a host of narratives to rally XRP price.
Robin, I got good news for you. No, you were eyeing a really expensive bookshelf for the back. Which, by the way, guys, we like turbo ran the expansion in the back. And so one of these shows, we're going to do it from the new set in the back. You guys are going to be freaking amazed. And so anyways, Robin, I'm donating my gains from the ETH trade yesterday for you to buy that bookshelf you always wanted, man. Thanks. Don't say I never do anything for you.
Wow.
Wow.
Join our Discord. Highly recommend. That's where all the fun continues to happen. And so, yeah, that'll do it for the show today. I want to thank every single person. We especially want to thank today's channel sponsor. Today's show was brought to you by Legacy Network and the Legacy Academy app. Their LGCT token is live on BNB. It'll be live soon on other networks like VeChain. And you can earn this token, which currently sits at, I think, around $2 for free in the app, which is also free. Talk about making extra money. Here it is. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and then earn the token and then cash it out and then make some money. Easy. So big thank you to Legacy for sponsoring today's show. With that being said, Rocco, where did the people vote? Did I get the most?
I guess was number 2, I guess. You lost.
I lost?
Yeah.
You're a liar.
Okay.
I want to recount. I want to recount.
Why are you asking him a question if you're not?
Yeah, okay, you didn't like the answer, so what do you want from me? Don't ask. Okay, so.
Whatever. The true winners are you, the community. We hope you enjoyed today's show. With that being said, Rocco.
There we go. Right here.
Tornado. My man's showing his guns today. You been working out or what?
Always been working out.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We love and appreciate every single one of you. If you're not subbed to the channel, do so and come back here tomorrow, same place, same time. Until then, peace.
Crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin.